American Wendigo is terrifying. You see, it tries to lure you into the woods by mimicking people or animals or whistling sounds to try and draw you outside. Now, there's a lot of lore around the Wendigo. For instance, they say you should never look it in the eyes because once you do, it will have control over you and can lure you out into the woods. They also say it has this supernatural ability to make pets not be aware of its presence. And it's also said that it cannot enter a home that is not built with wood from the forest which it resides. Now, most of the stories in America of the Wendigo come out of northern Minnesota. Now, there was this woman named Kathy. Kathy said during this period of her life, she was going through some really hard financial times. And she had this friend in Minnesota who owned several acres and had this trailer. And her friend was like, if you need a place to stay until you get back on your feet, you can come live in my trailer. But the trailer, was like a mess. You'd have to clean it up, but you're more than welcome to come here. So Kathy takes her friend up on this offer. She drives across country to Minnesota, and she gets to her friend's house about 8 at night. Her friend immediately takes her to this trailer, which is almost like a half a mile away from where she lives. So Kathy goes inside the trailer. It was like this huge mess, and she started cleaning it up and making it look nice. At about 1 o'clock at night, she started to get tired. So she said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and lay down. Now, being that they were in the middle of the woods, she didn't think she should lock her door on the trailer because she said, we're out here in the middle of nowhere. Who's going to get us? So her and her dog, they lay down and they go to sleep. Well, at 3 in the morning, she hears something outside of the trailer. And she notices her dog, who's laying right next to her, has lifted up its head and is moving it left to right like it has picked up on something. And that's when she hears her friend's voice say, Kathy, come on outside. And she almost responded to her because she thought it was her friend until she realized it was 3 in the morning and her friend goes to bed like at 9 o'clock. And she also thought it was weird that the dog didn't even respond to this thing. So she just lays in her bed holding onto her dog, and the dog is shaking and terrified. And that's when she starts hearing scratching sounds on the side of the trailer. And once again, she hears her friend's voice say, Kathy, come outside right now, come outside. And this whole time, she's just holding onto her dog, kind of freaking out. And then that's when she said the front door of this trailer opened up by itself. And she didn't want to look. She didn't want to see what was coming through that door. So she just put her head down. And she could hear this thing sort of breathing and groaning as it entered into her trailer. And she hears her friend's voice say, look at me right now. Look me in the eyes. And she doesn't respond. She doesn't say anything. And she said she started to say this prayer that she knew when she was a young girl. And she kept saying it over and over again. And eventually, whatever this was, left the trailer and took off into the woods. The next morning, she goes to her friend's house and she confirms that her friend was asleep and did not visit her. And she said, to this day, she is terrified to stay alone in northern Minnesota.
She comes home, parks her car like it's a normal night. But the second she steps out and shuts her door, she's not alone. Across the street, standing in the dark, appears to be a Wendigo. It's not moving like a person should. The woman doesn't scream, she doesn't shout, she doesn't run. She casually walks toward her house like it's nothing. Meanwhile, the figure is across the street, just watching. This is exactly why you should stay cautious at all times, because you never know when something unexplainable is going to approach you. And not in some forest, but outside your home, your job, the store. So the question is this mental illness? Somebody just trying to scare her? Or was this really a Wendigo caught on camera? Let me know.
Wake up, bitches and hoes. We getting ready to go look for a Wendigo and you're coming with me. And if you don't know what a Wendigo is, this is the closest resemblance. Actually, we're not going to go look for one because it's quite impossible to find one in the desert. And to be honest, I don't recommend anybody to go look for this thing. Since you're here, I'm going to educate you on the folklore. So the Wendigo is a terrifying creature / spirit from the Native American folklore, representing insatiable greed, hunger, and I can't say this word on this app. It's when your homeboy, your friend, your cousin become dinner. In the United States, they can be found in the Northeast and the Great Lakes region. Legends describes them as spirits that lure people in the woods, growing larger with each meal, but never feeling full. Humans can become Wendigos by engaging in those dinner parties, praying for power, or through spiritual possession, leading to an unending hunger for that dinner party. Wendigo folklore teaches vital lessons about the dangers of greed and selfishness, serving as a warning against hoarding resources and prioritizing individual gain over community survival, especially in harsh environments where sharing is key. The Wendigo often appears as a gaunt, monstrous giant with deer-like features, such as the antlers, long snout, or pale skin and glowing eyes. Wendigos are consistently depicted as moving with incredible supernatural speed, appearing as blurs or moving faster than the eye can follow, making them extremely difficult to escape despite their gaunt appearance. Often described as fast enough to outrun humans, they also have incredible strength. Wendigos hunt by using supernatural stealth, mimicking voices to lure victims, stalking them with terrifying patience, and exploiting winter conditions with blizzards, then overwhelming them with their supernatural strength, eventually driving them to madness. They are also masters of psychological torment, appearing as gaunt, ice-covered figures with a foul stench, making them nearly invisible and terrifying hunters in the desolate forests they haunt. Have you seen a Wendigo? Has a Wendigo haunted you down? Everything that I told you is all legends and myths, and nothing has been proven to be factual.
The amount of podcasts that I'm seeing of like these men sitting down and trying to justify eating babies and like killing children. I mean, I've seen two, but it's weird that I've seen two. Like I shouldn't have even seen one. You know what I mean? Like, oh, there's a benefit to killing children. Well, actually, we could find a way to justify eating babies. What? They're trying to normalize that? How do y'all feel about that? Because that is how normalization happens. That's how you hyper normalize something. That's literally insane. And this starts with y'all not reacting to them telling you what it is that they've been doing. So now they're like, oh, well, like here's some counter arguments you can use if someone tries to bring up that eating babies is wrong. We should never have to speak about that. Like, we should never have to say that that's wrong and immoral and you shouldn't be doing that. But here they are, confidently with big smiles on their face, like, oh yeah, let me tell you why I'm going to justify eating children and killing them. What?
You want to hear some scary shit? Then let's start our witch series with the Wendigo. Now, this creature is often mistaken for a skinwalker, part of two different nations. This is part of the Algonquin Nation, which includes the Cree tribe. This would happen when a medicine man or healer, shaman, would commit a crime like cannibalism, which would mostly take place during the winter months when the vegetation was scarce and the animals were hibernating. So instead of being grateful for not starving to death, they would eat people. Therefore, ending up cursed. They were cursed by their own people to walk around like this forever. Now, this, however, is part of the Navajo Nation, and this is a skinwalker. Skinwalkers can transform into dogs, wolves, coyotes, bears, things of that nature. They are said to cause illness, wreak havoc, animal mutilation, anything you can think of. This form is punishment for unaliving family. Again, this was also a medicine man, a healer, a shaman who has committed an atrocity for the sake of gaining more power. So, in the appellation, this is what you see, a Wendigo. Colorado, Arizona, Nevada, that area, skinwalker. Both are practically, well, cursed witches. Now that's some scary shit.
Have you ever heard about a Wendigo? Let's talk about it. From Google, the Wendigo was gaunt to the point of emaciation. Its skin pulled tightly over its bones, with its bones pushed out against its skin, its complexion the ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed back deep into the sockets. The Wendigo looked like a gaunt skeleton, recently disinterred from the grave. What lips it had were tattered and bloody, unclean and suffering from suppuration of the flesh. The Wendigo gave off a strange and eerie odor of decay and decomposition, of death and corruption. This is part 1 of the first story from Reddit's Paranormal, and this is from OKGuys6969, about the time I saw a Wendigo and wished I hadn't. I need to write this down before I convince myself it didn't happen. This happened in December last year. I was visiting my uncle in northern Minnesota, near the Canadian border. He's the kind of guy who prefers solitude, lives in a cabin deep in the woods, no close neighbors, just trees, and whatever lives in them. I've never minded visiting. I like the quiet, but after the night, I don't think I'll ever go back. It was the coldest night of the year, at least negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. My uncle had gone into town for supplies, so I was alone. The cabin was warm, the fire was crackling, and I was scrolling on my phone when I heard it. Something moving outside. No footsteps, more like a dragging sound, slow, deliberate. At first I thought it was the wind, then came the knock. Not at the door, at the window. 3 slow, deliberate taps. I froze. My uncle's nearest neighbor was a mile away, and no sane person would be out in this cold. The knocking came again. I reached for my flashlight and shined it through the window. I wish I hadn't. There was something standing just beyond the tree line. It was tall, at least 7 or 8 feet, but emaciated. With long, bony limbs. Its skin looked frostbitten, almost blackened, and its eyes were glowing. Not reflecting light, glowing on their own, like ambers burning in the dying fire. I should have looked away. Should have closed the curtains, but I froze, staring, unable to breathe, and then it smiled. Its teeth were too many, too sharp, spread across its face. It opened its mouth wider than a human ever should, and it spoke. Let me in. The voice didn't match the body. It sounded like a recording playing on the wrong speed. Too deep, too garbled. I ran. I grabbed my uncle's rifle, locked the door, and backed into the furthest corner in the room. The knocking stopped, but I could hear it scraping against the walls outside. Slow, patient, like it had all the time in the world. I sat there for what felt like hours, rifle shaking in my hand until my uncle finally came back. The second his headlights swept across the trees, the noise stopped. He found me pale, sweating, and gripping the gun as if my life depended on it. I told him everything. He didn't say a word, just nodded, checked around the cabin. When he came back, he looked unsettled. There are no tracks in the snow. Nothing, he said. It was impossible. I heard it. I saw it. There was nothing outside, no footprints, no marks on the wall, just untouched snow and silence in the watching trees. I left the next morning and hadn't been back since. My uncle still lives there, but he told me something before I left. If you ever hear it again, don't look, and whatever you do, never let it in. I haven't told anyone else until now, but I know what I saw, and I know it's still out there.
I was visiting my uncle in northern Minnesota, near the Canadian border. He's the kind of guy who prefers solitude, but I never minded visiting. I like the quiet. But after that night, I don't think I'll ever go back. It was the coldest night of the year, and my uncle had gone into town for supplies, so I was alone. The cabin was warm with the fire crackling, and I was scrolling on my phone when I heard something moving outside. It didn't sound like footsteps. It was more like the sound of something being dragged. At first, I thought it was the wind, but then came a knock. Not the door, but at the window. 3 slow and deliberate knock, knock, knocks. I froze. My uncle's nearest neighbor was miles away, and no sane person would be out in the cold. The knocking came again. I decided to look through the window, but I wish I hadn't. There was something standing just beyond the tree line. It was tall, at least 7 or 8 feet, but emaciated, with long, bony limbs. Its skin looked frostbitten, almost blackened. I should have looked away, I should have closed the curtains, but I was frozen, staring, unable to breathe. And then it smiled. Its teeth were stretched across its face, and when it smiled, it said, "Let me in."
It is a dark, cloudy, rainy night where I live, and so in honor of that, I'm going to tell you a scary story about the time that I saw one of these on my drive home. This was a few years ago, but if I had to put a number on it, probably early 2021. It was late at night, I was driving completely alone, and I had to drive through empty, dark, just open desert for like an hour. I was listening to music on my phone, and somewhere along the way, my music stopped working, and I was like, whatever, I'm probably just out of reach of, like, there's no Wi-Fi here, maybe my data is not working, so I switch over to radio. Static. Every channel. Static. Again, middle of nowhere, it's not that weird, so I try to switch over to downloaded music on my phone, and that doesn't work, and to me, that one was the red flag. It wasn't raining that night, but it was very, cloudy and lightning, thunder, so all I could hear was, my tires on the highway and distant thunder every now and then. No lights to speak of except for my headlights and the occasional flash of lightning. During one of these flashes of lightning, on the right of the highway up ahead of me, I see this guy. Here's the second picture. If I had to guess, this thing was 9 feet tall, and if I had to use one word to describe it, it was starving. That thing looked starving. Despite the fact that I was alone in the desert in the middle of the night, I do have some sense of self-preservation, so I just went, nope, and I kept driving, eyes completely straight, locked on the road, and I made it home just fine. For all the people that I see all the time talking about how much they would love to live in Arizona, would you? Would you really?
I prefer to stay anonymous. I have 2 stories for you. A few months ago, while I was working as a security guard in a small town, these guys renovating his office were talking about creepy experiences, and I told a few of my own. We go back and forth until one of the older ones talked about wolfmen. He encountered one that hung on his car while he was driving down the countryside road. He said that it jumped onto the back and crawled its way onto the roof. He stopped the car in an attempt to throw it off, but it still clung. It wasn't until it looked at him through the passenger side window that it tried to open the car door. He was going to crash his passenger side into a tree, so he speeds up and the wolfman looks at the tree, then at him. From what he said, it knew what I was planning and jumped off. He got to the end of the road and looked back to see the thing walk off into the woods. This happened in the 80s. The second one, same gentleman, claims that Wendigos have made it to Texas. Ooh, we get to know where this takes place. Claims to have seen them out in the wild and in mid-transformation. He didn't give much details besides that. So that is where this one ends. Right there. It ends right there. OP, thank you for sending this in. I think while still short, it is super important. These are almost like PSAs when I get these types of messages. Wendigos are definitely everywhere. I've had so many stories about Wendigos, it's not even funny. I don't know that I would have thought about them in Texas, but I guess there are quite a few wooded areas out there, so it would make sense to me. But the Wolfman, we've had some weird stories about wolfmen, about dogmen, and I think it would make sense to have wolfmen in Texas, but I feel like it would be a lot, I don't know, I feel like it would make a lot more sense if it was somewhere up with a lot more mountains. Does that make sense? I don't know why. Maybe because wolves are typically in mountainous areas. I don't know. Maybe I'm stretching just a little bit. Either way, having an animal, part human, crawling on your car and then putting 2 and 2 together that you are attempting to get them off of your car by potentially harming yourself and putting yourself in a much more dangerous situation by hitting them with a tree on a fast-moving vehicle is really scary to me. It's like they can take the context without having the full intellectual aspect. Does that make sense? I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments. Let me know, let OP know, and I love you guys. I hope you have a great stinking freaking day. And remember, there is a lot of cool things coming your guys' way. If you are not part of my little billboard that I've created in chats, you definitely should be. Bye.
Let's play pretend. Just imagine with me for a second. You had a stressful day at work, and you decided to decompress by taking a little hike in the woods. It's a long hike, and you've made it up most of the trail. You're feeling pretty tired and out of breath when you begin to notice a weird smell coming from your left. It smells metallic, like the smell of blood, and with the hint of something rotting. It smells awful, but maybe it's just a dead animal nearby. You decide to push through the smell and continue on. Suddenly, you get chills, not only because it's colder all of a sudden, but also because you have the weirdest feeling that someone is watching you. You look to your left and notice something dart behind a tree. It's too fast to tell what it was, and you think maybe your mind is just playing tricks on you. You continue to stare at the spot for a bit when suddenly a 15-foot tall humanoid creature peeks out from behind a tree about 30 feet away. It has a misshapen skeletal head. Its eyes are sunken in, but there's a strange yellow glow in the center of the sockets. You realize in horror that this thing has no lips, like it chewed away its own lips. Blood is crusting the raw flesh around its mouth. The creature's so thin and bony that it's able to easily hide most of its body behind the tree. And it's so tall it looks skeletally thin and bony, like it hasn't eaten in a very long time. You see that one of its bony arms is wrapped around the tree. The skin is sickly gray, and its arm is abnormally long. The long fingers end in razor-sharp nails that could easily tear through your flesh. You notice in horror that one of its fingers is missing. You're both staring at each other, and you realize that you've been holding your breath, and your heart is beating out of your chest. You try to force your feet to move, to run, and get the hell out of there, but your body is frozen in horror, and it won't cooperate. The creature starts to give you the most evil grin you've ever seen. Its teeth are long and jagged. They look razor sharp. Something about the way this thing grins at you jumpstarts your body, and as you see this thing begin to come out from behind the tree, you start to gain control of your legs. The creature moves in the weirdest way, as it creeps out from behind the tree, moving towards you. It takes a step toward you, and begins to crouch down on all fours like it wants to pounce on you. Finally, you're able to turn around and run, but as you're running away, it lets out the most terrifying scream you've ever heard.
Thank you for staying till the end of the video. So if you enjoy the stories and haven't joined our community of the curious yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell for more cryptid encounters, paranormal investigations, and true scary stories. If you aren't quite ready to sleep yet, I've put a playlist of more cryptid encounters right here on the screen. Click one, settle back in, and let the marathon continue. Stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Good night.